Excellent. Good morning, everyone. We're extremely grateful to have you here with us and glad to have you here with us from the Gentian headquarters here and also from the Freeze team, the Freeze family, and also from the Adams family. We welcome you. We're extremely excited to have you here with us. We talk all the time internally here and even with, the other teams, with the Freeze team and Adams teams, how much we care about our clients, but we always ask the question of as evidenced by. And this is one of those things that we're extremely proud of to share with you, to bring in Michelle. We've had some amazing feedback from Michelle's presentations in the past and all of the one-on-one coaching that she's provided for nutrition and health. And this is an extremely exciting one for me because many of you may not know, but I had an exercise science and business management degree, and I thought I was going to be a personal trainer for my entire life. So whenever we talk about in fitness and strength training, it's a wonderful topic. I love it very much because one of the most interesting things when I was a personal trainer, we'd put goals in place, and the first thing people do would walk to the treadmill or the stationary bike, which is amazing. Great to have a really strong ticker, but a lot of times the focus and emphasis would be very heavy cardio and kind of ignore the strength side, where can't wait to hear what Michelle has for us when it comes to how important strength is, not just for day-to-day living, but especially for longevity and overall health. So with that, I'll pass it to Kathy at Freeze Team as well.
No, I'm excited to welcome everybody. Just looking forward to hearing what Michelle has to say about which activities can help change our lifestyle. I'm definitely in that aging group, so I think I'm the oldest one on here as far as our team that's presenting. So yeah, excited for what you have to say, Michelle. So it's always good information. So welcome everybody. And then I'm just going to pass it on over to Carson, and he can give you a little bit of the activities, what you guys have questions and answers if you have any questions, what to do. So
yeah, for sure. Thank you, Kathy. Thanks, Zach. And I think it goes without saying that every single time that we've been able to do these webinars, there's always such good information from a practical perspective and health and wellness. So Michelle, we always appreciate you coming on here and giving us a ton of information and very applicable information as well. So for those who are listening, we have a Q&A button on the bottom. So feel free, please, please, please ask your questions. We'd love to answer them and get you the most information out of this webinar as possible. We'll save the answers towards the end, but if you can, please do ask questions if possible, and we'll get to those towards the end of the webinar. So with all that being said, Michelle, take it away.
Carson, thank you so much. And thank you all so much for being here this morning. I'm so excited to give this presentation. Many of you have probably been with us for our other health and wellness chats, but today is something that's near and dear to my heart. I was at UNC Chapel Hill, an exercise and sports science major. I did an internship with men's basketball strength and conditioning there for 7 years. So while I was in school and then beyond. And then fast forward to today, my husband and I own a CrossFit gym and have for the last 8 years. So while many people think of me as the nutrition lady and the food lady, which we will talk about today, I certainly love strength and conditioning, have a background in it, certified personal trainer, CrossFit coach, all that. And so this is a huge part of my life as well. And I'm really excited to bring you guys along and bring you into that world of strength training and talk about just the importance of maintaining muscle mass as we age. We think about maybe our cardiovascular health and getting our cardio in and getting our walking in. And we've talked through sitting is the new smoking and about how we need to just do more movement. Our bodies are not biologically designed to sit for extended periods of time, and all that still rings true. But today we're going to go in a different vein, and we're going to talk about the importance of muscle mass. And if we can maintain and continue to build muscle mass as we age, we're going to essentially have a much higher chance of living a long time, which who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want more time with their family, their friends, their grandkids, their great-grandkids? And so this presentation, forewarning, is a little bit of a humble brag. I'm going to utilize my 94-year-old grandmother a good bit as a wonderful example of what could be your future if you were to incorporate some of the things that we talk about today. I'm going to brag on my mother-in-law a little bit. Who else will you see? I took my mom out, but you'll meet my friend Steven. And then I think I told you guys, I'm pregnant with our third kiddo, 24 weeks pregnant. So you'll see a little bit of a pregnant lady doing some strength training in there at the end. All right, with that, let me share my slides. Here we go. And we're getting into it. As Carson said, if you guys have questions, throw them in the chat. We're going to address those at the end. All right. Muscle medicine strength through the decades. This is no one I know. This was a stock photo, but we will get into the people I know. You ready? You ready for it? I'm so excited. Here we go. So when you think about muscle mass, a lot of times we think about bodybuilders, we think about people that do those crazy competitions, we think about people who want to deadlift super heavy weight. But really, as we think about muscle mass as it relates to health span, longevity, it's not just about looks. It's foundational for health, it's foundational for longevity, essentially living a long time, daily function, being able to maintain that independence no matter your age. So here's one of those first humble brag pictures. This is my mother-in-law. She is carrying my son, and she is able to do that because she takes incredible care of herself. He is a 3.5-year-old that weighs 40 something pounds. He's all muscle, and she is able to keep up with him because she keeps up with her own health. And so who doesn't want that? That's really what this whole presentation is about, right? How do we continue our health journey long into our 70s, 80s, and even 90s, so that we can spend the most amount of time functionally with our loved ones. That would be my life goal for sure. So why specifically does muscle mass matter? Let's start with that. We think about muscle mass. Yes, it's important for strength, but what else is it linked to? Have you ever thought about that? What specifically muscle mass is doing for your vitality? We're going to go deep into a few things. So number one is longevity and mortality. Here's that second humble brag. This is my 94-year-old grandmother. She is out in her 1-acre yard picking up sticks. And I told her that she's picking up trees. Those aren't sticks. And then she throws them down into the creek. So yes, she lives independently with my 92-year-old grandfather in a 3-story home and takes care. She's his full-time caretaker. He's not in as great of health as she is. But she is able to do all of those things because she's put an emphasis on health and wellness her whole life, specifically movement. Movement, she'll tell you, if you stop moving, you'll die. You got to keep moving. So low muscle mass is linked to a 2 to 3 times higher risk of all-cause mortality. And then if you look at muscle mass, it's actually a strong predictor of survival compared to BMI alone. So BMI is simply your height and your weight. It's not looking into where your weight is coming from. Is your weight more fat or is your weight more muscle mass? So if we look at something like an in-body scanner, and if you have never done one, I really encourage you to do that, and I'm happy to point you in the right direction. But an in-body scanner is going to tell you what exactly you're made of. How much muscle mass do you have? How much fat mass do you have? What percentage body fat are you? Your BMI, your basal metabolic rate, your muscle mass distribution from left to right. Is your right arm as strong as your left? And when we think about this idea of longevity and having more muscle mass, this is something that we want to pay attention to and we want to track. So if you have the opportunity to get on an in-body scanner once a year and make sure that you're maintaining that muscle mass and that you have an even distribution in muscle mass, legs and arms, that way we're not at high risk for injury. The more uneven you are, the more prone to injury you are. So if we can watch those two things, then we're setting ourselves up for success. And if you guys want to talk more about the in-body scanner later, we certainly can. All right, number 2, metabolic health. So muscle is the largest site of glucose disposal. So essentially what that means is that when you eat something that's high in sugar or breaks down like sugar in the body, think about bread, pasta, cookies, crackers, chips, Cheez-Its, our favorite foods, tortillas, muffins, English muffins, etc. They're all going to break down like sugar in the body. So the amount of sugar in your blood is going to go up. That's your blood glucose. What happens next is that you can't walk around with an elevated blood sugar. Your body doesn't like that. That's really harmful to the body. So the pancreas releases insulin. Insulin goes and gets that sugar and pulls it out of the blood. From there, the ideal spot for that glucose to get dumped would be into your muscles. So if you have a lot of muscle mass and you're utilizing those muscles for working out, for strength training, then you're depleting your muscles of that glucose. So when you eat something like that, that glucose can go back into the muscles. If we don't have very much muscle mass or we're not utilizing our muscles very often, we have a sedentary life and we're not strength training, you know where that glucose gets stored? As fat in that spare tire, on the hips, in your booty, all the places we don't want it to go, right? So the more muscle mass we have, the larger a site we have to dump that glucose that we all enjoy to eat every once in a while, right? That also means that you have a lower risk of insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes when we have more muscle mass. That's really exciting news. Okay. More muscle mass. I don't want to say gets you the ability to eat more sugar, but it just protects your body more when we choose to maybe indulge a little bit more. Number 3, functional independence. So this is another really important reason why muscle mass matters. So I mentioned my Grammy, 94 years old. She lives in a 3-story home. And just to get into her house, she has to go up an entire flight of stairs. Her bedroom is then up another flight of stairs. So she is going up and down stairs all day long. She can carry groceries up that flight of stairs. And think about if she didn't have the muscle mass to be able to do that, she wouldn't be able to live independently. Think about all the things that require independence. You need to be able to sit down on the toilet, stand up off the toilet. You need to be able to get out of bed. What if she were to take a fall? Can she get up? So muscle mass is really important for mobility, for balance, for reducing your fall and fracture risk in aging. And then it's directly tied to the ability to live independently later in life. Think about that. She's 94. My grandfather's 92, and they live independently, which is pretty incredible. And muscle mass is one of the biggest factors why they are able to continue to do that. Number 4, bone health. Resistance training and muscle loading improve bone density, and it's the greatest possible thing that we can do to reduce our risk of osteoporosis. So we talk about vitamin D, we talk about calcium, and yes, they are super important, but strength training is the best thing that we can do to improve bone density. I actually got a text message from an employee that I work with. I do corporate wellness. Mostly I go into companies and I work with the employees and try and make them healthier. And 2 days ago, I got a screenshot from an employee from her doctor that said she had been diagnosed with osteopenia, so fragile bones and poor bone density. And he said she needs to strength train, she needs to take vitamin D and take calcium. And so she sends me this text about, hey, this is what I just got from my doctor. Can you recommend a good vitamin D and calcium? And she completely just disregarded the strength training piece. And so I had the opportunity to say, yes, I can recommend high quality vitamin D, high quality calcium. However, the most important thing that you can possibly be doing to improve your bone density at this point is to load your body. And what we mean is we need to lift weights. We need to build muscle, put your body under tension, under weight to strengthen your bones. And so that looks like some things that we're going to talk about later, some ways that we can do functional strength training to improve bone density. But if you know that you have osteoporosis in your family, or maybe you've had a bone density scan and you're borderline, maybe osteopenia also was something that came out of your doctor's mouth at one point. This is something we need to take very seriously, because if you think about, if you have brittle bones, your bones aren't very dense, that puts you at much higher risk for fracture. So if you were to take a fall and then you break a hip, I think we've all heard the story of someone that's kind of the beginning of the end. They fall, they break a hip, and then it's just a downward cascade from there. So if we can make sure that we have super strong bones, we're saving ourselves from that scary cascade, right? Number 5, cognitive and mental health. So there are tons of studies coming out, which is super cool, is that strength training has been shown to improve mood, memory, and resilience against cognitive decline. So there again, the humble brag that my 94-year-old grandmother, my 92-year-old grandfather, and my kids, those are their great grandkids, and they know them and they love them and they're able to play with them. And because of the way that they've been able to take care of their bodies throughout their life. If you look at the studies about muscle mass and as it links to cognitive decline, it is very protective against cognitive decline. So remember the concept of epigenetics. Epigenetics is essentially what Duke University started studying back in 2000. And it was this idea that challenged the initial thought that if you were dealt the gene for Alzheimer's, the gene for high cholesterol, the gene for heart disease, it didn't matter what you did, you were going to end up with Alzheimer's or heart disease or high cholesterol. And what they have proven since is that that's not true. Hear me when I say that. Just because you have the gene for something does not mean that gene's going to become expressed. You have attached to your DNA what's called your epigenome. And your epigenome, I want you to think about it like light switches, and it controls if a gene gets turned off or stays turned on or stays turned off your whole life. So maybe you do have the gene for some sort of cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. If you strength train, take good care of your body, decrease the inflammation in your body, manage your stress, sleep well, etc., that gene can stay turned off your whole life. So that's really exciting news. That puts a lot of responsibility on the individual, but it's exciting news in the sense that we're not doomed. We have more control than we initially thought. So strength training plays a huge role when it comes to cognitive decline. Save your life. So just over a year ago, one of my husband and I's very, very, very best friends was in a life-altering car accident. He was in a head-on collision at 55 miles an hour, and you can see what the car accident resulted in. He was wearing his seatbelt, but because of the seatbelt, he had a torn heart aorta, which led to a spinal stroke and paralysis. Basically, the blood was shunted from his legs for quite a long period of time, and so now, as of today, he's paralyzed from the hips down. He had torn intestines. It fractured his jaw in 2 places. He had a broken foot, fractured L3 vertebrae, and a chipped hip bone. So it was a pretty gnarly accident, as you can imagine. He was the assistant football coach at Davidson College. I'm sitting in Davidson, North Carolina right now. And last November, that whole staff got basically the coaching jobs at Rice University. So he moved last November. So my husband was just out visiting him last month. But I haven't been able to see him since he moved, which has been really sad. But I was texting with him yesterday as I was finalizing this presentation, and I asked if I could utilize his story. And I asked him to remind me of what the doctors and the EMTs said about how strong he was and the amount of muscle mass he had and how that related to essentially his survival. And so I have a screenshot of the text that he sent to me. I'm going to share that in just a second. I also want to share that about a week before his accident, he was back squatting 500 pounds. So while his legs don't look like much in this photo was taken in May, so it was a couple months after the accident. But in March, about a week before the accident, he was just a beast of a human, played college football, as you can imagine, took incredible care of himself, and still continues to do that today. And he wanted me to share with you guys this text that he sent me yesterday. So he said, muscle mass saved me. I'm going to try and read this without crying, because it was really a crazy thing that happened to our CrossFit community. Saved me from a pure protection standpoint. Head-on collision at 55 miles an hour. Seatbelt tried to cut me in half. My heart was able to continue to pump and keep me alive with a torn aorta. That's a 5% survival rate. I was so alert and coherent, they didn't even know about the torn aorta until they cut me open for the intestine surgery. It made a world of a difference from my recovery standpoint as well. My body was able to put itself back together much faster because of the amount of muscle mass I had. From a functionality standpoint, it has made a huge difference. What I'm able to do now and my quality of life is directly determined by muscle strength and mass. So this was 2 months after the accident. I'm holding the back of his wheelchair as he's strict pressing, I don't even know how many pounds. We do an event. We have done an event the last 2 years in his honor now that's all about strength. We do a strength cycle for the 12 weeks leading up to the test out day, where it's a 1 rep max of strict press, deadlift, and back squat. And it's just reminding people about the importance of muscle mass. And it's not that we want to train with the idea that one day we're going to be in a head-on collision at 55 miles an hour, because that's a pretty morbid thought, but just the idea that muscle mass in everything can be incredibly beneficial. And this is him about a week and a half after his accident, standing up. So he's in a brace. He can't, his brain can't control his legs, but if he's in a brace, he can stand up and he can actually now walk with those braces on, because he does have control over his hip flexors. His brain does talk to his hips. So, all right, I hope that motivates you to do some heavy lifting. Here's the deal. Strength and lean muscle mass decline 1 to 2% per year after age 50. The caveat, if you're not working on it. And 1 to 2% every year after age 50, it's a compounding effect, right? So if muscle mass is directly linked to longevity, no matter whatever age you are right now, this is something we need to start paying attention to, something we need to start thinking about. And there's two parts to that. One, we need to strength train. And we're going to talk about what exactly is strength training. What does that look like? And then we can't talk about strength training unless we talk about protein intake. If we're doing all the strength training in the world, but we're not emphasizing the thing that we need to build the muscle mass, then it's pointless. So strength training in the way that we're going to talk about it today, it's the practice of using resistance, such as weights, resistance bands, or even your own body weight to build and maintain muscle mass, bone density, and overall strength. And then we're going to talk deep into that, and then we're going to emphasize protein intake, talk about how much protein do we need, what are good sources of protein, what are some quick and easy protein bars, powders, healthy protein snacks that we should be leaving the house with in the morning. Okay. All right, let's get into it. What are some effective strength training options? So when we think about strength training, you might think about, I have a kettlebell in the garage, I've got two 15-pound dumbbells, but they're gathering dust, I don't know what to do with them. So there's lots of different ways that we can functionally strength train. We can do group fitness classes. I'm a huge fan of group fitness classes because I think it's nice to have someone else, one, observing what you're doing and giving you feedback on your form, but also two, they are prescribing the workout. It's not up to you to go in there and figure out, what do I want to do today? And one of the things I like most about that is that they will tell you to do things that maybe you wouldn't write for yourself. For example, I hate lunges. If I was going to write my own programming and go into the gym every day and do what I wanted to do, I would avoid them at all costs. But I need to do lunges. They're really important for building muscle mass and for balance and for as it relates to longevity. So I need someone else to force me to do lunges. We can go to the YMCA, we can go to a rec center, we can go to Planet Fitness and utilize the equipment that they have there. The caveat to that is that we want to make sure that we have good programming when we get there. We need to know what we're doing. While strength training, obviously, as we've learned, is incredibly important for longevity, overall health, and well-being, if we are strength training and we don't have good form and we don't have anybody telling us, hey, you need to correct your squat form, then it can end up with an injury, which is the opposite of what we're trying to do. We're trying to prevent injury, right? So we need to make sure we have good oversight. Personal training, if you have no idea where to start, this is an awesome option for you. And maybe it's not a long-term solution. You do three, I understand, because it's a huge financial commitment. Maybe you do 3 sessions with someone. You share with them your goals, and then you work with them through 3 different workouts. And then from there, you can take what you've learned and start to incorporate it on your own. They're going to watch you move. They're going to watch your form. They're going to make sure that you are doing things correctly. And then they're going to give you those exercises to help you reach the goals that you have. Home workouts with programming. That's the key there. Home workouts with the programming. So if you're going to work out at home, lots of people have equipment at home. I think COVID made a lot of us equip our homes with some sort of fitness equipment, which is fantastic. And maybe fast forward to 2025, it's gathering dust. Let's dust it off. Let's get it back out. And if you need help knowing what to do with that equipment, there are wonderful resources out there for you. I can be one for you. You have some wonderful gentlemen on this call with lots of personal training and programming experience. You can reach out to them. You can use one of those fitness apps. The Apple Health app, Peloton, is awesome. And they have classes where you just follow along. They tell you what you need. You pull it up on your phone, you watch the video, and you follow along. Okay, so when we have that programming, we have the oversight to make sure that people who are well versed and trained in strength training are giving us a good, well-rounded workout so that we're not overtraining one muscle group and neglecting another, right? We want to make sure that we're balanced and we're hitting all the important muscle groups, which we'll talk about later. And then weighted walking or hikes. There's a huge interest right now in the weighted vest and walking with a weighted vest. I think it's a fantastic way to add a little tension or a little bit of a load as we're walking. Do I think it is the end all be all and you don't need to do anything else if you're going to do weighted walks? No, that's not what I'm saying. I think it's a great complement to some additional strength training. Okay. You can use your weighted vest to do body weight squats. You can use your weighted vest to work out in. I think that's a wonderful complement to weighted walks or hiking. And when I say hiking, I don't necessarily mean with a weighted vest, just if you're going up that big incline, you're utilizing your lower body muscles in a different way compared to if you're just walking on the asphalt or on a walking pad or on a treadmill. So hiking is, a wonderful way to build some strength too, but it's not the only thing that we can rely on. We need to think about our upper body and our core as well. All right, so what are we emphasizing when we are doing this type of strength training? This is Grammy, God bless her. That is not great form when it comes to a deadlift, but she's getting after it. Okay, I think those are maybe 3-pound kettlebells, but she is getting after it, you guys. The first thing we want to think about preserving and building muscle mass. So we think about the large muscle groups. We're thinking about our legs. So that incorporates our quads, which are the 4 muscles on the front of our legs, our hamstrings, the 2 muscles on the back of our legs, our glutes, that's your booty muscles, your back. All right. Think about posture. Poor Grammy. You can watch her posture there. That's one thing that I should have started working with her on 20 years ago, because she has become super rounded in her old age, and she is tight in her chest and her back isn't strong enough to pull her shoulder blades back. So when you think about strengthening our back, that's for posture, right? When we end up in that super hunched position, we're at much higher risk of a shoulder injury, okay? So we need to strengthen the back. And when we strengthen the back, that's important for being able to hold groceries, being able to open the door. Again, we're thinking about independence and longevity, functional fitness. That's important. Chest, and that's the front right here, the front of your torso, and then your core. And that incorporates not only what we think about when we think about abs, but your low back as well. Strengthening the low back is important for balance. It's important for back health. It's important for posture. Many things that come along with training the low back, all right, and the mid back too. Number 2, we're going to train for strength, not just for endurance. So there's lots of gals out there that will lift lighter weight at more reps. And I'm not saying that there's not a time and a place for that, but when we're thinking about training for longevity, we need to lift some heavy weights. Okay. And you can decrease the reps significantly, and we don't have to do this every day. And we'll talk about how often we need to be doing this later, but essentially it shouldn't be lightweight for lots of reps all the time. We need a couple days sprinkled in there where we're lifting heavier weights for less reps, right? We want to make it difficult. We really want to put our body under that load. Okay. Power and explosiveness matter. Incorporate safe power moves. This is all for functional fitness. So think about a sit to stand with speed. That means you're sitting in a chair and you're standing up and you're doing it quite quickly, especially the younger you are. And maybe if you're really young, you're doing it with a weight. You're doing it holding a kettlebell or holding a dumbbell or with your weighted vest on. Medicine ball tosses. This is with a weighted ball and you're passing it back and forth either off a wall or maybe you have a partner in the gym. If you feel comfortable, you're standing on one foot and you're doing it. You're working on that balance. Kettlebell swing. So you're taking that kettlebell down between your legs and up over the head. That's basically a full body movement, getting your posterior chain, that's your glutes, your hamstrings. It's getting your core. It's getting your upper back as we swing that kettlebell above our head. It's good for mobility. Step ups. Think about how many times in a day you're stepping up on a curb. You're stepping up into your car. You're going up a flight of stairs. Step ups are one of the most functional things that we need to maintain to be able to maintain independence. Right? You would think about that. And then help prevent falls and support daily activities. So that power and explosiveness directly correlate to that daily activities of daily living. Next is one of my favorites is grip strength. So if you listen to Dr. Peter Attia, he's a longevity expert. He's got a practice in Texas and he's helping people to optimize their health and well-being so that they can ultimately live a long time. His personal wellness goals, which I think are super fun, he is training for what he calls the centenarian decathlon. So he's got all these goals of things that he wants to be able to do at 100 years old. It's like carry his grandkid up a flight of stairs, get out of a swimming pool without using a ladder. They're pretty lofty goals for 100. But I mean, and then he's very methodical. He's worked his way backwards. I think he's in his mid 50s now, and he knows based on his training program what he needs to be able to do now if those are his goals at 100. I digress. One of his things that he emphasizes is the importance of grip strength because it directly correlates to longevity. So he says that we need to be able to dead hang from a bar. So think about a pull-up bar, monkey bars, maybe a doorway pull-up bar. Ladies, we need to be able to dead hang. So you just reach up, grab that bar, pick your feet up off the ground for 90 seconds straight. Okay. Next time you have access to a pull-up bar, test yourself. Do you have 5 seconds? Do you have 10 seconds? Are you at 30 seconds? We're training for 90 seconds. Gentlemen, 2 minutes. That's the goal for a dead hang. Okay. He emphasizes training for this, utilizing farmer's carry. So that's where you would grab some weights and you are just going to walk with heavy weights. You can do deadlifts. So if you're doing heavy deadlifts, you're holding onto a barbell or you're holding onto dumbbells, and that's training your grip strength along with your posterior chain. Pull-ups and rows. So obviously if you're doing a pull-up, you're having to hang from a bar. If you're doing a row, there's lots of different versions of a row, but essentially you're pulling something towards you, and that's going to have to train that grip strength. Squeezing tools, or simply just training the dead hang. Hop up on a bar and hang, and hang for as long as you can. If you can't hang if you got 0 seconds in your hang, that's totally fine. Put a toe on the ground. Okay, take a little bit of load off of that hang and see how long you can hang, and then work towards 5 seconds of a complete dead hang, and then we work our way all the way up to that 90 seconds or 2-minute mark. Oh, I didn't mute this video, sorry. All right, functional movements for daily life. Essentially, we're thinking about squatting, hinging. It's my sister training my Grammy. She's doing a farmer's carry there. Really, we should have had her lift heavier weights for her farmer's carry. All right, so think about squatting. I love this one because people tell me all the time, oh, my doctor told me I can't squat anymore. It's bad for my knees. And my rebuttal to that is, do you sit in a chair? Do you get out of a chair? Do you sit on the toilet? Do you get out of the toilet? Do you sit in the car? Do you get out of the car? Because every time you do one of those things, you're doing a squat. You basically cannot go through life without squatting unless you live in a wheelchair. Okay, so squats are important, and we need to train the patterns used in real life, and that's one of the main ones. Whether it is simply a sit to stand where you're sitting in your chair and you stand up, and we're doing that multiple times a day, maybe 10 times in a row. Hinging. So think about, we have to reach down, get something out of a low cabinet. We have to pick something up off the floor. We have to pick our grandkid up. That's a really important movement. So anything where we hinge at the hips, that would be more like a deadlift. It's an important thing to train. Pushing. So it doesn't have to be all the way down on the ground doing a push-up, but maybe we're doing wall push-ups. We're doing push-ups on a box, some sort of incline to relieve some of the pressure. Or if we can, we're going all the way to the ground to do some push-ups. Think about, we have to open a door. Any sort of pushing movement functional for life is going to require that chest. So we need to train that. And then pulling, we talked about carrying groceries, carrying anything, pulling something towards you. You're underneath the bed. You need to pull something out from underneath the bed, that back muscle. And then for postural purposes, we need to work on the pull. And then to emphasize again, the farmer's carry. So your mimics luggage carrying groceries. And then just for that longevity, grip strength, and training that grip strength because of the stats that say it relates to longevity. And then number 6, consistency over perfection. So 2 to 3 strength training sessions per week are enough for the big health benefits, as long as we're eating the protein to make sure that we're building the muscle mass that we're trying to build. Okay. So this is not something you have to do every day. No need to lift heavy every day. But if we can do 2 to 3 days of heavy lifting, and that looks like 20 to 30 minutes of these super functional movements, that is plenty for the overall big health benefits. Here are some of my personal favorites for longevity. Okay, so the first one being a glute bridge. So that's the top left corner of your screen. You simply lie down on your back, you lift your hips up towards the sky, and you're engaging your posterior chain here. So that's your glutes, your hamstrings. This is important for balance. It's important for being able to walk up a flight of stairs. The next one on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, that's called a bird dog. This is training the low back all the way up really through the upper back as well, and balance. So we have to engage our core to be able to lift one arm and one leg off the ground at the same time. So you start on all fours. My left arm is extended, my right leg is extended. You can see I'm having to use my back, my glutes, my shoulder to maintain balance. You want to stay nice and flat. So when we talk about core training, not just the abs, but the low back, that's one of the ways that we can do it. For the glute bridge, going back to the video in the top left corner of your screen, if you feel comfortable doing a body weight glute bridge, you can add weight to your hips. You could put a barbell on your hips. You could put a kettlebell on your hips, dumbbells on your hips. And so that when you lift your hips up to the sky, it's an additional weight. You're under load trying to really train those posterior chain muscles. Okay. The bird dogs, we don't really add much weight there. Next to, we've got the body weight squats. We talked about how important squats are because they are just a part of everyday life, whether we want to admit it or not. So if we're just starting out, we're going to do body weight. So you can say, see my toes are pointed straight ahead. I'm sitting my hips back. My chest stays up tall and my arms are out front for balance. If a body weight squat is no problem for you, I really would encourage you to add weight. Put a barbell on your back, hold a kettlebell at your chest, hold 2 dumbbells down by your side or up on your shoulders. And that is a fantastic way. That's when we're loading the body so that decreasing our risk for osteopenia or osteoporosis. We're strengthening our lower body muscles. That's all of them with our quads, our hamstrings, our glutes. If we're looking for something that's going to help us prevent falls, this monster walk forward and backward is one of the best ways that we can do that because we're training what we call our glute med. That's the side of your tushy. All right, that's important for stabilizing the hip, stabilizing the knee. So as you go up a curb, as you go up a flight of stairs, if you have to step up onto anything, that's going to be a really important thing for balance. So as we put that band around our ankles, I'm taking a big step forwards at an angle, and then we're doing the same thing in reverse, backwards at an angle, working the glute and the glute med for balance. And then there's another one that we can do on this next slide, top left corner. We're just taking lateral steps. So you'll see, put the band on around my ankles. My toes stay pointed straight ahead. And we're going to take a few steps to the right and a few steps to the left. The tendency here is for the front foot to want to turn out like east or west. It's going to want to turn out, but I really encourage you, if you're going to do this, your toes want to stay pointed straight ahead. And that's how you're going to get that hip, that glute med to get engaged. Really important for balance there. Okay. I think we could do that at any age. There's lots of different strengths of that band. So the stronger your glutes are, the stronger your glute means you could do a different weighted band. You could do black or blue. Those are a little bit stronger. The lighter ones tend to be yellow or green. Lastly, the plank, super important for the core. So core is related to balance. It's related to many functional movements. If we don't have a core, it's really even hard for us to sit upright, something that simple. So when we're doing a plank, we can be on our elbows or on our hands. We don't want our hips way up in the air. We don't want our low back to sag. We want to be nice and flat, okay? And you'll feel that basically in your abs. And maybe you start with 5 seconds. Maybe you can start with a minute. Wherever you are, start there and then try and add more time. Okay. These are some of my personal favorites for longevity, for functional fitness. Of course, there are many, many more. I'm happy to write you guys some programming and meet you wherever you might be on your strength training journey. Obviously, we didn't do a lot with weights in these videos, but I would really encourage you, if you have access to weights, to take that into consideration when you're doing your strength training routine. Okay, we got to talk about protein, right? Because if we're doing the strength training piece, we're breaking down. Essentially what happens is when we strength train, we break down that muscle tissue. We get these little tears in our muscles and then they grow back. And the idea is that they grow back stronger, a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. We need the protein for them to grow back bigger and stronger. If the protein piece isn't there, we're not going to see the muscle growth that we want to see, that we're working so hard for. That's why we have to talk about this in the muscle mass presentation. So how much protein do we need? What the recommended amount is, it's way too low when it comes to preserving and building muscle mass. So the goal would be 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. Okay, so if you weigh a healthy 200 pounds, here's the example. You're going to take 200 times 0.8, which would be 160, 200 times 1, 200. So your goal of protein every day is between 160 and 200 grams of protein every day. most Americans are getting nowhere near the amount of recommended protein every day. It should be somewhere between 30 and 35% of your total calorie intake for the day. So if you maybe you weigh 200 pounds, but your ideal weight is closer to 160, let's do 160 and utilize the same formula. Okay, so get out your phone, do some math real quick, figure out how many grams of protein you need every day. And then your homework assignment after this presentation would be for the next 2 days, utilize something like MyFitnessPal or Carb Manager or one of the apps where you can track all your food and see where do you fall. Are you meeting those goals, the protein goals, or are you getting half of what you're ideally supposed to get? Most people realize they are significantly under eating protein, significantly overeating carbs, and not getting enough healthy fat, right? So 30 to 35% of our daily calorie intake should be from healthy protein sources if our goal is to maintain and build muscle mass. Healthy sources of protein, so natural healthy sources of protein. We've got grass-fed beef, pasture-raised eggs, pasture-raised chicken, wild-caught fish, pasture-raised turkey. We've kind of thrown a blanket on the meat industry and said that all meat is bad. You guys have heard me talk about this before. I want to reiterate that there's way more nuanced than that. We can't just say that all meat is bad. Yes, here in America, we have done a very poor job managing our meat industry, and some of the factory farming, the industrial farming practices have really decreased the quality of our meat because the animals have such a poor quality of life. So if you think about a cow that's raised in a feedlot, so in a pen, covered, no access to sunlight, it's fed a diet of corn and soy its whole life to become as fat as possible, as quickly as possible, likely given antibiotics because it's in such close quarters, likely given some sort of hormone so that it'll grow quick and fast and can be sent to the slaughterhouse and make it to our plates ASAP, no access to exercise, and not eating its natural diet. Versus a cow that's allowed to roam in a pasture, access to sunlight, exercise, have its natural diet of grass, takes a few extra years to get to a weight that it can then be sent to the slaughterhouse. Can you imagine the quality in that meat versus the first example is quite different? And it's a measurable difference. They can measure the omega-3s, they can measure the amino acids, and it's very different. So when we are buying our meat, we want to try and think about the life that that animal had. The life that that animal had directly correlates to the nutrient density or lack thereof in that cut of meat. So grass-fed beef, 100% grass-fed beef, that's the goal. Pasture-raised eggs, pasture-raised chicken, wild-caught fish, pasture-raised turkey, all going to be more nutrient dense than the factory farm stuff. Raw nuts, it's not necessarily the salt that's the problem, it's the oil that they use to get the salt to stick. So they use one of those inflammatory oils, canola oil, soybean oil, the seed oils, as we say. So when we're buying nuts, go to the baking aisle. That's the cheapest place to find them, and buy raw nuts. Avocado, a decent source of protein. Lentils or quinoa, if you're trying to avoid meat-based protein products. Yogurt, beans, chia seeds, full-fat cheese, hemp seeds should be on there as well. All good sources of healthy protein. Questions I get all the time: what about protein shakes and drinks? Here are some of my favorites to recommend. So the left side of your screen are protein powders, high quality protein powders that are not sweetened with any of the artificial sweeteners and very simple ingredients. The Earth-Fed Muscle, they have a whey or a plant-based protein powder. So if you don't tolerate dairy well, you want to steer towards the plant-based protein powder or the bone broth protein. Ancient Nutrition, they have a bone broth protein powder. That's Dr. Axe's supplement brand. He does a great job. And then Sun Warrior, theirs is all plant-based. So again, not using any artificial sweeteners, no added dyes, very simple ingredients in all those proteins. And you have to order Earth-Fed Muscle online, Ancient Nutrition. You might be able to find at Whole Foods, but most likely online. And then Sun Warrior, you can find at Whole Foods, or you have to order it online. Pre-made protein drinks. These are becoming way more popular. Some are trash, some are awesome. So if you are drinking Fairlife, if you are drinking Premier protein shakes, drink up what you got, and then we're never going to buy those again. And we're going to switch to one of the ones you see on your screen. So we've got the Orgain. Those are very easy to find. The Own, OWYN, only what you need. Again, those are very easy to find. Kate Farms, I've never seen these in the store. I've had to order them online. And then the Remedy protein shakes. I think those might be only a Whole Foods thing. But if you like to have a grab and go protein shake option, maybe you like to have a protein shake after a workout, or you like to have it as your breakfast, these are some great grab and go options. We're looking again for no artificial sweeteners, no dyes, none of those thickeners, the gums, trying to keep it as simple as possible. High protein snacks. I tell people when you leave your house in the morning, make sure you have 2 of these with you. Our society does not do a great job setting us up for success when it comes to quick, healthy, high protein options. If you're going to rely on a convenience store or a gas station to get you there, gas stations and convenience stores, depending on where you go, they're getting better, but you have to deny yourself about 97% of the store. Go to the back corner, find something healthy. Don't look at anything else. Check out and get your tushy out of there. Because unfortunately, the majority of the store is just really ultra processed food. So do yourself a favor, don't even tempt yourself, and leave the house with 2 of these. Aloha protein bars, super clean. That's a plant-based protein bar. IQ bars, very easy to find. RX bars, again, very easy to find. That's an egg white protein bar. Prima protein bars, harder to find, but really top quality. Same with the Primal Kitchen protein bars. Those are collagen based. The Prima are whey protein based. A couple other my favorite high protein snacks. I just had one before we got started. A chopped beef jerky stick. This is 10 grams of protein in 1 stick. For those of you that are using the Yuka app, I love the Yuka app, but one of my issues with the Yuka app is that if you scan this, it will tell you that it's not good for you. And the problem is that the calories are too high, but it's a very clean product and it's very high in protein and healthy fat. Okay, so I think they get the majority of things right, but I think this is one of them that I don't agree with. The 0 sugar yogurt option. So whether you're buying just a full fat plain Jane Greek yogurt, that's a great source of healthy protein. Or if you like a little flavor, we want to make sure that we're buying something that doesn't have any added sugar and none of the fake sugar. So the 000 yogurt and the Chobani 0 sugar yogurt sweetened with stevia. So that's a natural sweetener versus the artificial stuff like sucralose or aspartame. Hard-boiled eggs, cottage cheese, the full fat cottage cheese, organic roasted chickpeas. This is a great healthy snack with some protein in it. Organic is key here. Chickpeas are one of the most heavily sprayed crops with glyphosate. Glyphosate is that super toxic pesticide. It's illegal in most other countries around the world, but yet the majority of our food is sprayed with this awful stuff. So chickpeas, because they're one of the most heavily sprayed with glyphosate, if we buy organic, we can ensure that they haven't been sprayed. So organic roasted chickpeas, and then organic edamame. Same thing, soybeans are heavily sprayed with glyphosate, so we want to be buying organic so we can avoid that pesticide exposure. Oh, I forgot to mute the noise on this video too. So in conclusion, we're going to get into some Q&A here. We want to strength train. We want to emphasize protein. And I love this quote by Dr. Stacy Sims. Skip the fad diets and the detoxes. If you want to do one thing that improves health span and lifespan, start a dedicated resistance training program and make some muscle. So this, again, 94-year-old Grammy, she's still on the tennis court because of all that she has done to train herself to essentially get here. I hope that she is an inspiration to you as she's an inspiration to me. She's an amazing woman. Her brain is there. She knows her great grandkids. She is able to do nearly anything that she wants to at this point in her life because she's worked so hard. You guys have heard me say this before, but she'll say, you want to know how to be 94 and be as active as I am? You got to do 3 things. One, you got to have a big social circle. She's really social. She's got a ton of friends. She plays bridge. She's always, going to dinners with these girls or these girls. She's on the tennis court with her friends. Number 2, you can't stop moving. That's been a huge part of her life. She was a PE teacher growing up, and then she's just stayed active in sports and in the gym. And number 3, you got to drink a lot of wine. I don't know if I can endorse that last one, but hey, she's 94 and she's doing it. So maybe take her advice over mine. All right, lastly, this is me, Michelle Norris, Michelle at altitudewellness.com. I mentioned I am now 24 weeks pregnant. This was a few weeks ago, and strength training is something that is super important to us and my family, and we are sticking with it through this third pregnancy. I was able to do CrossFit through my first two pregnancies, all the way up until the day before I delivered my kiddos, and hopefully this pregnancy allows me to do the same. I was in there this morning. It's slow going. It's not very pretty, but we're getting after it. Continue to try and maintain as much muscle mass as I can through my pregnancy because it does. That's one thing we didn't talk about, but it does deteriorate very quickly. So we always have to be working against that. So even though I've got this extra bowling ball in my belly, trying to maintain as much muscle mass, because if I were to do nothing for 9 months, I would have lose a ton of muscle mass that I worked really hard on basically my whole life. So trying to maintain that. With that, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I've seen a
Yeah.
couple questions come
Th-
through.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And I have a ton
Yeah.
of questions, so I'll try to limit myself and read a few that we have that came in. But the beautiful thing about being pregnant and continue your workouts, you don't have to get a weighted vest. You kind of have a one there for you. So
That's hilarious.
the
The
weight
workout this
continues to
morning,
increase.
yeah, included a weighted vest. And I was like, oh, now you guys can all feel what it feels like.
Absolutely. But just got a couple different questions because one thing that I've found personally and also with helping many others through this as well is let's say we listen to a presentation like this, we get really excited, we get really motivated, and we kind of structure goals, very ambitious goals, right? I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it 3 times a week. If they say 2 times a week, I'm going to do it this way, I'm going to do an hour a day. And almost the goals are too big to maintain because when you don't do it as often, you get sore faster, that demotivates getting the next workout in. So kind of a question that I have is just what's really the first step? How should I structure my goals? And let's say I'm coming from a place where maybe I did it in the past and did it well, or maybe I'm just starting out. Well, if I had 10 minutes in the day just to like get the momentum going forward and getting the compounding effect working for me, how would what are like some good exercises that wouldn't be a huge impact on the body, where if I had 10 minutes to add it into my day, what would that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you're just starting out, or maybe you've taken a break from your fitness journey and you're trying to get back and do it, I would encourage you to start with a body weight circuit. And that could be 2 to 3 times a week. And I have a already written body weight circuit with links to videos. If you guys want that, I'm happy to share it. You can do it anywhere, no equipment necessary. And depending on how you feel, you can go through that circuit twice, 3 times, 4 times, and then rest, give a day in between. And then if you wanted to try and do it, so you do it on day 1, rest day 2, day 3, you could try it again. If you're super sore, we could wait one more day. Maybe you start with twice a week and you work your way up from there. So you're working up, and it doesn't have to be something that you end up doing every day. We talked about style of strength training. And again, 20 to 30 minutes. So if it takes you 5 minutes to get through one circuit, maybe we set a timer for 20 minutes and we work for 20 minutes trying to do as many of those rounds of the circuit as we can.
I love that. And one thing I forgot to mention in the beginning too, we have a resident expert, Ryan Caro, on our team, who is actually a gym owner and a personal trainer as well. So Ryan, feel free to jump in on any questions as well or anything that you have to add. But another one for you, Michelle, because I'm always extremely passionate about the psychology behind things, not just the physical side, especially when it comes to what we do with behavior finance and how it works with markets, but especially when it comes to our health and fitness. Have you found if somebody doesn't have a strong why, that it's harder to stick to the goals, where if you mentioned that talking about your grandmother of like hanging with the great grandchildren and these, do you have any advice for creating a strong why versus something I just want to get stronger, I just want to do this, which is great, might get the momentum, but do you have any guidance of like what a very strong why would be for us?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think for many of us, our goal is so focused on our physical appearance, just because the way our society is set up and the way we have access to social media, and we're doing this compare thing. And I really would encourage you to steer your goal away from something that is related to your physical appearance and shift it more towards, okay, I have Alzheimer's in my family. I really don't want to get Alzheimer's. If you do, you should really, like, if you have Alzheimer's in your family, you really need to take that seriously. Or I want to be able to play with my great grandkids, or I want to prevent heart disease, or my doctor told me I had osteopenia, or I'm on my way there. Let's find a different why. And for me, my health is super important, so that's easy for me to shift there. But certainly, I think it's hard for me to say what's a great why, but I think anything that's not related to your physical appearance is a step in the right direction.
I would 100% agree with that, because in the limited time where I was a personal trainer, kind of the most common thing that somebody would come in with was a goal of, I want to lose 10 pounds by this date. I want to lose 20 pounds, 30 pounds, or 50 pounds, where if I could go back in time, being a young personal trainer at the time, it's like, okay, no problem. Here's the plan on how to do that. Where if I would go back, it would be, tell me a little bit more about that. Why is that 10 pounds important to you?
Right.
And trying to attach that 10 pounds to a greater meaning, because, like one thing that was really interesting, and for people that have that goal, that's great, is, and maybe you found this as well, is just you start strength training and you actually gain weight temporarily, where if your goal is, to lose weight, it's like, man, this isn't working. I thought I was going to lose weight when I did this, where you actually, muscle weighs more than fat. So you're actually gaining weight, but then, the muscles take more calories to grow. And all of a sudden it's like a 6-month year process where you actually do end up losing some weight just because of building that muscle mass. So
That's right.
I love,
And that's where the InBody scanner comes in, which,
and speaking of the InBody scanner, that was a question that came in from the audience as well. Is there a in-home body scanner that you'd recommend, or one that people be able to use somewhere?
So I haven't seen, if you're going for accuracy, I haven't seen an in-home one that is super accurate. The thing about the in-home ones though is that if it says your muscle mass is going up, it likely is. If it says your body fat percentage or body fat is going down, it likely is. If it says you have 56 pounds of muscle, that's where I'm not seeing it as accurate as something like an InBody or the gold standard, the DEXA scan. So if you want to just know if you're trending correctly, there are lots of in-home scanners out there that you could use. I don't have one that's coming to my mind right now. But also, if you wanted to know more accurately about how many pounds of muscle you have, how many pounds of fat do you have, your muscle mass distribution right versus left, if you go to the InBody website and you go to the locator tab, you can type in your area code, and within a 10, 20, or whatever you set the radius as, it will show you the closest InBody scanners in your area. And a lot of them are like inside a weight loss center or inside a CrossFit gym, and they'll do a one-off scan for anywhere from 10 to, please don't pay more than like $30 for a one-off scan. If they're charging more than that, that's ridiculous. So call somewhere else. But if you just did that and spent the money once a year, it would be totally worth it.
Love it. I appreciate that. And I'll let Ryan speak on a few different things, and Kathy and anyone else that wants to ask a few questions, but I'm super passionate about this, so I apologize. But kind of one question when it comes to, the strength side of things, and what, for most of our attendees on here that are maybe 50 through 85 years old, how do we determine the difference between being sore of, starting to work muscles that haven't been worked, and pain, and how to structure that, how to be aware of that, when to push through, when not to push through, kind of the difference between sore and pain.
That's a tough one. So the more you do it, the more you'll realize I'm sore versus I'm hurt. Soreness typically should go away within 2 to 3 days. If you did a really, really heavy workout, could last longer than that. If it doesn't go away after 2 to 3 days, then likely maybe we should see it. If you're still struggling with it after a week, maybe you want to see a massage therapist, maybe you want to see a PT, an orthopedic, something like that. I don't know what side of me, the hard-headed side of me would say that most of the time we're just sore, or it's just a little kink in something. And if we just keep going, it's actually going to sort itself out. I think a lot of times our biggest issue is that we're doing squats on the third one, something doesn't feel right in our knee, so we just stop and then we avoid squats. When really, if we just did a few more, it would sort itself out and you're going to feel great. And Ryan and Zach, you guys can chime in there. That's kind of that's a personal anecdote, but also something I've seen in my training, is that a lot of times the little bit where we get a little bit scared, and I totally understand if you haven't had that feeling before, and maybe you've had an injury before, so you've got a little trauma there, that you can feel really hesitant to be like, oh, I just can't. But if we push through, a lot of times we find that it actually works out for the best. I don't know if you guys would agree.
Yeah, I'd actually love to chime in on this one. my experience, the biggest thing that I can point to tell the difference between soreness and injury, especially when it comes to the muscle, is when I have an injury, it's going to be a very, very specific location. Say, my hamstring doesn't feel good. There's going to be, a 1 inch by 1 inch square where my hamstring really, really hurts. When it's sore, it's usually pretty much the whole muscle feels sore or tender to the touch, right? So that's going to be a pretty good indicator. If I had a hard workout yesterday, today that whole muscle feels sore, okay, it's probably just soreness from activity. If there's, if I can put my thumb on one specific spot that really hurts, that might be something that would warrant a little bit more attention. Yeah. And then, in workout, something doesn't feel good. I completely agree. Most of the time, you can kind of make some small adjustments. Maybe you need to reassess your technique or your form a little bit. That's where it's great to have a personal trainer or a coach, being part of a class where somebody can give you some feedback and say, hey, your knees are caving in when you're doing your squat. That's why it hurts. Or, your one foot is turned out like this and your one foot is straight forward, that's going to make your knees hurt when you're squatting. So making those little adjustments can be super helpful.
Love it. I saw a question come in, kind of just shifting gears from the strength to the nutrition side of, it's so difficult on the nutrition side of what to believe. There's so much information out there, but a question that came in is just lab-grown meat has been banned in some states, even though it's been said that this meat has all the nutrition that we need. Any thoughts on lab-grown meat at all?
My initial thought is that there's just no way that we can recreate meat with the quality of like a really good pasture-raised animal that's allowed its natural diet, access to sunlight, access to exercise, all of those things. I don't know enough about it to say whether that's 100% true or not. I can research more and get back to you on that. That's just my initial thoughts there. I don't know if you guys have any additional thoughts on lab-grown meat.
I can give quite a bit of advice about pushing through adversity, and the fitness side, nutrition side, I'll defer to you because that is a area where it's probably do as I say, not as I do for that one.
Man, on nutrition things, I'm always really wary of the new hot thing. Like there just hasn't been enough time to study what it actually does to us. It could be amazing. It could be great, or it could be absolutely the opposite. We just don't really know yet, in my opinion.
Right. Agreed.
Excellent. Kathy, any questions on?
No, I think everything, this is great, Michelle. Thank you so much. There's a lot of information here. So I did write a few things down for myself. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for your
You're
time.
welcome. Yeah. Thank you guys for being here.
Excellent. Yeah. Before kind of just a couple, closing items for us here. Anything, Michelle, any closing items or thoughts on your end?
You guys, if you want the slides, I'd be happy to share those with you, or you guys are welcome to share the link that I sent out of the presentation so they can have access to the videos and rewatch some of those. If you guys have any personal questions about maybe you have 2 pieces of equipment in your garage and you're wondering, how do I use these to do this strength training thing that you're talking about, please reach out to me. I'd love to help you.
I love it. Thank you so much, Michelle. And as I mentioned at the beginning, why the heck are our financial planners, introducing us to this health side of things? Why are we talking about this? And it's truly because we care about you. And I know I can speak for our team and Free's team and Adam's team as well, that we want you to live your most meaningful and joyful life. And we know it's not all about your finances, that we're here to do the best we can with tax law changes, what it means, and how we can be optimizing when it comes to our financial plan. But we want you to optimize your entire life as well. And we know that the health side, that if we have to spend all of our health to get our wealth and then use our wealth to get our health back, it may not bring us the most meaning and joy. So we are here to be along on this journey with you, to be a guide, to introduce you to experts like Michelle, and also just a reminder that as a favor to us, and also just in general with Michelle's generosity, as she's here as a resource for you for the strength training side of things, for the nutrition side of things. And with that, just wanted to thank you so much for spending an hour with us here today. And we love and care about each and every one of you, and hope you have a great rest of your week and a great rest of your day as well. So thank you.
Any opinions are those of myself and not necessarily those of Raymond James. Expressions of opinion are as of this date and are subject to change without notice. The information contained in these podcasts do not purport to be a complete description of the securities market or developments referred to in this material. The information has been obtained from sources considered to be reliable, but we do not guarantee that the foregoing material is accurate or complete. Every investor situation is unique, and you should consider your investment goals, risk tolerance, and time horizon before making any investment. Prior to making an investment decision, please consult with your financial advisor about your individual situation. Any hypothetical examples are for illustration purposes only. Actual investor results will vary. Raymond James does not provide legal or tax services. Please discuss these matters with the appropriate professional.